Okay, let's jump right into this. We're going to unpack a fascinating and, let's be honest, pretty counterintuitive argument from a recent analysis. It basically suggests that one of the best ways to strengthen America's economy and its national security is to bring in way more students from other countries.
And there it is, the core idea in a single sentence. Now, your first reaction is probably the same as mine. Wait, what? How could that possibly work? It sounds like a total paradox, right? But to really get the logic, we've got to look at two big challenges the U.S. is facing right now.
So to wrap our heads around this solution, we first need to understand the problems it's meant to fix. The source points to two really critical gaps, one happening in our universities and another one in our workforce.
First, let's talk about the education gap. For about a decade now, domestic college enrollment has been dropping off, and it's putting a serious financial strain on our universities. In some states, the numbers are just dramatic. This number right here, that's a drop of over 25% in just one state, Illinois. And what the source makes clear is this isn't a political issue. You see similar trends in states all over the map, from Texas to Florida.
And that drop in college enrollment feeds directly into the second gap, a huge labor shortage. Honestly, the data cited in the analysis is pretty staggering. In just one sector, we're talking professional and business services, there are over 863,000 jobs just sitting empty. That's what this number shows. And that's just a piece of a much larger puzzle, with millions of open positions across the whole economy.
So let's keep those two problems in mind, struggling universities and a major worker shortage. Now let's see how international students fit into this equation. First up, they act as a financial lifeline for higher ed.
You might think international students are everywhere on college campuses, but the data shows they're actually a really small slice of the pie, less than 5% of the total student population. Now just hold on to that small number, because what we see on the next slide is what makes this so incredibly powerful.
Get this, that tiny 5% group contributes almost $44 billion to the U.S. economy, and that's in a single academic year. It's a perfect illustration of their outsized impact. According to the data, that spending also supports over 378,000 American jobs. So yeah, it's a classic case of a small group making a massive positive difference.
So how in the world is their impact so big? Well, it comes down to simple economics. The source explains that international students almost always pay the full out-of-state tuition, and they do it without any federal aid. The key phrase is right here. They pay 2 or 3 times more. That money becomes a direct lifeline for universities, helping to keep the lights on, fund programs, and boost the local economies all around these schools.
But that financial shot in the arm while they're in school, that's really only part of the story. The real strategic value, according to this analysis, kicks in after they toss their graduation caps in the air. Let's look at how this talent pool becomes an even bigger engine for American innovation. Just look at this list. These are some of the most dominant, game-changing companies on the entire planet. And here's the kicker. 5 of the top 8 companies in the S&P 500 were either co-founded by or are currently run by people who first set foot in the U.S. as international students. Just let that sink in for a second. The very engine of the modern American economy is being powered by talent that we educated right here. And it's not just the big, established giants either. The analysis also digs into unicorns, those billion-dollar startups that represent the next wave of innovation. A study found that nearly a quarter of them had a founder whose American journey began as an international student. So they aren't just filling jobs, they're literally creating the companies and the industries of tomorrow.
Okay, so now we can finally connect all these dots. Let's bring it all together and solve that initial puzzle. How does nurturing this incredible talent pipeline actually become a core part of an America First strategy?
This is where it all clicks. The analysis links this talent directly to key strategic goals. For example, do we need to rebuild critical supply chains for things like semiconductors? Well, you need brilliant, skilled workers to fill those labor gaps. You want to achieve energy independence? You need the brainpower and innovation these graduates bring. When it comes to national security, America's edge in AI and advanced manufacturing depends on this talent pool. And then there's diplomacy. The source points out that 90 current heads of state were educated in the West, which builds these invaluable global relationships for decades to come. So, if attracting and keeping this talent is so incredibly important for the country's future, the next logical question is, how are we actually doing? in the global race for these bright minds?
And the answer is, well, it's not great. This chart right here is a real wake-up call. While international students make up just 5% of the student population here, that number is almost 25% in the UK. And in Canada, a whopping 29%. Our peers, our competitors, are actively pursuing the strategy, while the US is falling way behind. The source calls it a major competitive gap, and you can see why.
So what's the solution? The author lays out a pretty clear three-step plan. First, it starts with a mindset change. We need to see these students as both a strategic import of incredible talent and a valuable export of our world-class education. Second, we need a real, coordinated national strategy to actually go out and compete for them, something our rivals are already doing. And third, just common-sense visa reform. Make it easier for the best and brightest graduates to stay, contribute, and build their lives and businesses right here.
This quote from the author of the analysis, Manu Smadja, who was an international student himself, it just brings the whole thing home. The opportunity is sitting right there in front of us. The seats in our universities are empty, the jobs in our most important industries are unfilled, the potential is absolutely immense, and it's just waiting to be unlocked.
And really, that leaves us with this final, powerful question. The analysis makes a really compelling case that this isn't just about education policy or economics, it's a strategic choice about the future. The world's top talent is out there, and according to this argument, they are America's to lose. The only question left is, what are we going to do about it?